The Dollar Saloon. The town of Copper Ridge had seen better days. Once a bustling outpost for miners, cowboys, and traders, it had fallen into ruin after the gold veins ran dry. The streets that once echoed with piano tunes and rowdy laughter now carried only the sound of wind kicking up dust. Most buildings stood boarded up, their wooden bones creaking in the relentless western sun. One such building was the Silver Star Saloon. For decades, it had been the life of Copper Ridge. Men gambling at the tables, women singing on stage, whiskey poured until the sun came up. But when the last bartender left town and the sheriff stopped patrolling, the saloon became nothing more than a husk. Its sign hung crooked, its windows shattered, its doors sagging. Until the day Ethan Cole arrived. Ethan was a tall rancher in his early 30s, with a kind of strength earned from years of hard labor and the quiet air of a man who had buried too many regrets. He wasn't looking for riches. He wasn't even looking for company. All he wanted was a place to start over after selling his late father's small ranch that had been stripped by debt collectors. The county auction notice had caught his eye. Lot number 17, Silver Star Saloon, Copper Ridge. Abandoned property. Opening bid, $1. And so, with a single coin in his hand, Ethan won himself an entire saloon. The locals snickered when they saw him shake hands with the auctioneer. What kind of fool would buy a crumbling saloon in a dead town? But Ethan didn't care. A roof over his head was all he needed. By late afternoon, he rode into Copper Ridge on his bay horse, Dusty, his saddlebags the only possessions he carried. The saloon loomed at the end of the main street, its weathered frame casting long shadows in the dying light. Ethan tied up Dusty, pushed the swinging doors, and stepped inside. The air was stale, heavy with dust and old whiskey. Broken chairs and scattered playing cards littered the floor. A cracked mirror hung behind the bar, reflecting Ethan's rugged face. He sighed, hands on his hips. "Needs work," he muttered. "But it's mine." He began exploring the rooms, opening doors and peering into empty spaces. Upstairs, he found abandoned bedrooms with broken bedsteads and curtains eaten by moths. Then, behind the last door in the hallway, he froze. Inside, huddled together on a single mattress, were 3 women. Their eyes went wide at the sight of him. They were young, each striking in her own way, though their beauty was marred by bruises, torn clothing, and exhaustion. One had fiery red hair that hung in tangles, her lips swollen from a cut. Another, with raven-black hair and pale skin, wrapped a blanket tightly around herself, trembling. The third, golden-haired and fair, looked at him with defiance despite the dark bruises on her cheek. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan asked, startled. The blonde spoke first, voice rough but steady. "Who are you? This place ain't yours." Ethan lifted the deed from his vest pocket and held it up. "Bought it at auction this morning. Paid fair and square. This saloon's mine now." The women exchanged uneasy glances. "You need to leave," the redhead whispered. "If they find us here." "Find you? Who?" Ethan pressed, stepping closer. The black-haired girl shrank back against the wall. The blonde glared at him. "You don't understand. We don't got anywhere else to go. And if you send us out there, we're as good as dead." Ethan studied them, frowning. They weren't squatters by choice. He could see that plain as day. Their clothes were ripped, their faces bruised. Someone had hurt them. Recently. "Sit tight," he said gruffly. "Ain't no one throwing you out. But you're gonna tell me what the hell happened here." The women hesitated before the blonde finally spoke. Her name was Clara, and the other 2 were Maeve, the redhead, and Isla, the quiet raven-haired one. They had been working girls once, back when the saloon had still drawn life. When Copper Ridge collapsed, they'd been trapped here under the thumb of a brutal gang that occasionally drifted through town. Beaten, used, and abandoned, they had nowhere to run. The gang still returned now and then, taking what little they had left. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd seen cruelty before, but hearing their story boiled his blood. "You're safe now," he said finally. His voice was low, steady, but it carried weight. "This saloon's mine, and anyone that wants to hurt you'll have to go through me first." The 3 women looked at him, disbelief flickering across their battered faces. Men had promised them safety before, only to betray them. But something about Ethan's eyes, calm, steady, unyielding, made them pause. Maybe, just maybe, he meant it. That night, Ethan lit a fire in the old stove and cooked beans and bacon from his saddlebag. The women ate like they hadn't seen food in days. For the first time in years, warmth filled the Silver Star Saloon. But outside, under the cold moonlight, hoofbeats echoed in the distance. The gang was returning. A fight for shelter. Ethan woke before dawn. Years of ranch life had trained his body to rise early. He stood by the bar, sipping black coffee, when he heard it, horses in the distance. Clara, Maeve, and Isla stirred awake, their faces pale with dread. "They're here," Maeve whispered, clutching the blanket tighter. Ethan set down his cup and checked the revolver strapped to his hip. It was old but well kept, his father's gun. He loaded 6 bullets and snapped the chamber shut. "How many?" he asked. 5, maybe 6, Clara said. "They come for money, whiskey, and—" Her voice trailed off, her eyes flickering toward the women. Ethan's jaw hardened. Not today. The gang arrived with a thunder of hooves, 5 rough men, dust on their coats, pistols at their sides. Their leader, a scar-faced brute named Hank Dorsey, dismounted and kicked open the saloon doors. His smile widened when he saw Ethan. "Well, well. Looks like someone's moved in." He spotted Clara and the others cowering upstairs. His grin turned cruel. "And you got my girls hidin' here. Thought you could steal what's mine." Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between the gang and the staircase. His hand rested on his revolver. "They ain't yours," Ethan said evenly. "This saloon belongs to me now. And they stay here under my roof." Hank's men laughed, but there was no humor in it. One spat on the floor. Another reached for his gun. "You got guts, stranger," Hank sneered. "But you don't know who you're dealin' with." "I know enough," Ethan said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were steel. "And I ain't backing down." The standoff crackled with tension. Then, in the blink of an eye, it broke. One of Hank's men drew his gun, but Ethan was faster. A single shot rang out, and the man dropped to the floorboards. The saloon erupted in chaos. Gunfire lit the air, bullets shattering bottles behind the bar. Ethan ducked behind a table, firing steady, deliberate shots. 2 more gang members fell before they could reach the stairs. Hank cursed, grabbing Maeve by the arm as she tried to hide. "Come here, girl." But Clara, fueled by rage, hurled a bottle at his head. It smashed against his temple, sending him stumbling. Ethan seized the moment, firing once more. Hank dropped to his knees, then collapsed. The remaining man fled, spurring his horse into the dust and vanishing down the empty road. Silence fell over the saloon, broken only by the women's heavy breaths. Ethan holstered his revolver and looked up the stairs. Clara, Maeve, and Isla stared at him in shock. For the first time, hope shone in their eyes. "It's over," Ethan said softly. "They won't hurt you again." Maeve burst into tears. Isla clung to her. Clara walked slowly down the steps, her gaze locked on Ethan. "You risked your life," she whispered. "For us." Ethan shrugged. "Ain't right, what they did to you. And I don't much like bullies." The days that followed were different. Together, they began to clean the saloon. Ethan repaired broken tables, while the women scrubbed floors and washed windows. They cooked meals, shared stories, and little by little, the Silver Star began to feel alive again. Clara laughed for the first time in years. Maeve's fiery spirit returned, her bruises fading. Isla, though quiet, began humming softly as she worked. And Ethan, who had once come to Copper Ridge looking only for shelter, found himself with something he hadn't expected. A family. The Silver Star Saloon no longer stood as a ruin. It was a home. A place of safety. A place of new beginnings. And for Ethan Cole and the 3 women who had thought themselves broken, it was the start of something none of them had dared to dream of before. A life worth living.